For those of you who haven't seen a data center, imagine a very large room with rows and rows of big cabinets full of servers or storage devices or network devices. Over time, those devices are consuming more and more energy. There was a report that was put out 2 years ago predicting that by 2025, the data center market would consume more energy than India as a subcontinent does. Some very innovative thinkers got together, looked at the marketplace. They anticipated where it was going. They literally ripped up the rule books and started again. I'm Phill Lawson-Shanks. I'm the Chief Innovation and Technology Officer at Aligned.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Lappart, and today how Phill Lawson-Shanks joined Aligned to build forward-thinking solutions for the next wave of data centers. All this and more on Code Story. Phill Lawson-Shanks has had a convoluted path into tech. In the past, he worked for a company that owned and operated airports in Europe. And he got involved in the very early days of servers. So early that this was back when they were just PCs under someone's desk. This took him down the path of migrating mainframes to more cost-effective productivity machines. He worked for Compaq at one point, which brought him to the States. Personally, he enjoys risk-taking. He rides a Ducati motorbike way too fast, enjoys adventure sports, jumping out of planes, and rock climbing. In 2013, the founders of Phil's current company saw the way the data center industry was going. They saw that the energy consumption around data centers was going to be astronomical. And they started building some incredibly innovative things in this area and got Phil's attention. 3 years ago, he joined the team. This is the creation story of Aligned.
So Aligned is a data center designer, builder, operator. And there are lots of data centers out there on the planet. A lot of them sort of migrated, as say, from those computer rooms, those early computer rooms. The data center business really transitioned, and it was more a cost-benefit analysis. If you think about a company, they've got a lot of their productivity units on servers running usually in a building that they own and operate. And there's a certain cost associated with that. You know, there's just the capex of buying the gear and the opex of operating and the people. Over time, it became more efficient to put all of that gear in someone else's building. And that was the birth of the data center business, sort of back in the 90s, end of the 90s, as the internet was really starting to ramp up before that first bubble burst. So there's a lot of buildings out there. And a lot of those were designed based on traditional computer rooms. So raised floor, ceiling plenums, cooling devices that really hadn't changed that much since the 1920s when they were invented. You know, a compressor, very much like a big fridge, a compressor, a coil, and forced air. But over time, obviously, computers have got much, much more sophisticated, more powerful. So the needs have changed. So being part of this process and the businesses I've been involved in, my last one was looking how the internet was operating and those main peering locations in the country, moving those out to more tertiary markets and having many, many points of on-ramps, basically, and then peering locations. As the servers have become more powerful, as data centers have changed, the needs changed, I was looking around at the next cooling technology. And I came across this particular company who invented some fascinating product. And 3 years ago, after lots of conversations, I jumped ship to come here because I see this is the next evolution of what we're doing in this market.
So when you jumped into the company, tell me about where the product was, and even if you want to highlight the stories of how it started, but tell me about that first set of products for the data centers, for how you approach this, and how you and your team brought it to life.
back in the day, about 2013, well, probably 2012, but the company started in 2013, some very innovative thinkers got together and looked to the marketplace. They anticipated where it was going, and in particular, the environmental impact of data centers. And just to put that in context, there was a report that was put out 2 years ago, so it's probably well out of date now with COVID, but they were predicting that by 2025, the data center market would consume more energy than India as a subcontinent does. So putting that into perspective, and the materials that we use and all of that, they wanted to build the most sustainable data center product on the market. So they literally ripped up the rule books and started again and created some really innovative thinking and products and services. The one that I really want to highlight is the cooling technology. Because again, if you think about, for those of you who haven't seen a data center, imagine a very large room with rows and rows of big cabinets full of servers or storage devices or network devices. And over time, those devices are consuming more and more energy. So bringing energy into a building, that's just a function of working with the energy supplier and the distributor, and putting more transformers outside and all of that. That's not insurmountable. But removing the heat generated by those devices, that's the critical part. And if you think about how even the biggest companies, the hyperscalers, the cloud providers, how they lay out their platforms in third party, they obviously have their own data centers, but they use other people as well. So when they lay those out, they're forced to put them in a certain format. So the hottest equipment, the equipment that's using the most energy, are in the middle parts of the rows, and then it gets progressively less energy towards the edges. Maybe 25 in the middle kilowatts of use, down to about 3 at the edges, just because the air is pushing under the floor, it's coming out vents, and the majority of the cooling's in the middle. But you're pretty much stuck at that point. And the cooling devices are massive, 12 foot by 6 foot by 4 foot wide, and they're just ringing the room. And with the best will in the world, you're going to get about 100 to 110 degrees of heat absorption rejection from one of those devices. And they're massive, and they're a fixed asset. They're usually part of the depreciation of the whole building of the data center. So you're not going to change those. So what happens is the customer comes in, they put their gear in, and then 2 years later, AMD, Intel, NVIDIA come out with the next platform. They want to change that, and they can't, because they can't remove the heat. And I was seeing this sort of develop over time. So the technology that Align created, and we call it the Delta Cube, is literally a cube. It's a 4-foot cube, and just one of those will remove 146 kilowatts of heat. And then we stack them 3 high, and then just ring the room with them as we need to, appropriate to the customer's use. And also, the way it works, when you move either water or air over any hot surface, you get this state change. It absorbs the heat and takes it away. So obviously we're using air. You typically get about a 7 degrees, at the most 7 degrees of heat change at delta T change. So even if you push more air across, if you're moving it faster, you actually get diminishing returns because it's not over the hot thing long enough to absorb that heat. So rear door heat exchangers, big fans on the back with cooling coils or extra fans on the front, doesn't actually help that much. You get some, but not enough. With this technology, we carefully control how much air is moving across that surface through some very sophisticated technology, and we can get a state change of 45 degrees of heat absorption. So we can let our customers, they'll start with that sort of mixed capacity, maybe some 3 kilowatts with their network gear, or 25 for their performance storage, or they could ramp up to 50 kilowatts in every cabinet, or just have mixed capacity. So it lets the customer grow as they need to grow. They can expand on demand because their needs are changing. Their customers are driving them to make changes and add more technology. but also they're not fixed, and that gives them much more flexibility and also control their costs a bit more. But having said that, we're talking about 50 kilowatts a cabinet. There's obviously there's the hyper-compute performance like the Cray systems, which are still around. They're owned by HP now, HPE. Now those sort of devices, they have their technology, and we tap those into our closed water loop, and we can get up to 250 kilowatts of heat rejection with our system. So, and typically in those you have a couple of those systems in there, and they're surrounded by traditional servers and storage and whatever. So with this hybrid, we can accommodate any of those infrastructures, and again using a lot less energy. Typically 80% less energy. We don't have to use water to cool, which is really important nowadays. So much water is wasted through evaporation. We can be entirely waterless, and we are in several of our centers, and all our future data centers will be totally waterless. Even those older ones that we have when the company was founded, they use 85% less water if we use it at all. And that's, we're talking about places like Phoenix, which typically, in the last few months has been, in the high, 100 and teens, 117, 120 degrees. So we've had to use a little bit, but that water's cycled around many, many times. We use virtually none at all. So that's really what brought me here, is that technology to take our customers' platforms to the next level. And then there's some other things as well, but that's the focus of why I came here.
Either in the early days or when you joined, or it'd be interesting to see where you start there. But when this technology was being created, with any technology, right, you have to work through decisions and trade-offs about how you approach it and what you do first. Right? Tell me about some of those decisions and trade-offs that the company has had to work through.
So the first part of that technology, the first revision, was an overhead unit. Really efficient, really effective. But that involved a lot more structural work because they were heavy devices. So, and we still have a lot of that running today. A lot of our customers love that. Very high performance compute operating that way. But we found that we wanted, as we were innovating, we were looking at different ways. So we transitioned from that overhead to these these wall-based units. And also that was driven by some of our customers who, we have some that their technology is very, I would say, confidential. So they would rather not have people going into their space to do maintenance on the equipment. So with this new technology, it's all in the wall. So we maintain it from outside of the envelope of their room. So, for those customers that maybe they're FISMA moderate, they're federal, or there's some level of security, or there's a compliance issue, or it's one of our customers that really don't want people in there. So by moving to this in-wall unit, we allow them just to maintain everything that they do. And we've continually modified and are tweaking the technology. We used to deploy it with chimneys, overhead chimneys in the hot aisle that poured in. Now we're going to a ceiling plenum, so we have mixed air. We're seeing much more efficiency. So, and we monitor everything. We monitor the air going in, the air coming out, the water temperatures, the energy. So we're constantly tweaking and changing as we go to optimize the performance for our customers, and also minimize the energy that we're using to deliver the service to them.
How has the product progressed over time? How has your approach to this progressed over time, and how have you guys built your roadmap and figured out, okay, this is the next most important thing to address with Aligned?
With this particular one, we've tweaked it over the last year. Actually, we found a much more efficient fan unit, which brought the energy down and increased the CFM, how much air it's actually moving. And it's important with the air. It's actually volume as opposed to velocity of air as well. So if you think about you standing in front of a fan, you can, there's a lot of, you can feel the wind on your face, as it were. You do feel that, but it's actually the volume of air. So we're very carefully managing the air pressure differential to make sure the air is moving slower but more of it over the surface. So we're constantly tweaking those things. We have, we run our own BMS and desym platform, so we monitor the speed of the fans. We're tweaking those all the time, monitoring the air pressure differential between what's the hot aisle, the piece behind the servers, and the outside air. There's just constant monitoring and tweaking. And again, we've for the other end of that equation, once we absorb the heat in this device, it goes in a closed loop of a blend of glycol and water outside the building to basically a chiller that then exhausts that into the atmosphere. And we used to build our own. And 7-8 years ago, when the company was doing this, no one could touch that. Industry's caught up, so we're actually using off-the-shelf chillers now on the outside, but we still haven't found anything that competes or compares even close to the Delta Cube in the data halls themselves. So that's an innovation. So we're not maniacally focused on this is our way, we'll let you do it this way. We're looking at the cost, the build cost of our buildings, how we build them, the deployment cost, all of those things constantly. Because whatever it costs us to build and operate these buildings, there's an implied cost to our customer. They have to pay a portion of that. So we're minimizing all of that for our customers to give them the best experience.
Well, let's switch to team then. So how do you go about building your team, and what do you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
With our market, and I'll talk about the whole company in general, because we have everything from mechanical engineers to salespeople, sales engineers, IT engineers, operations people who maintain the buildings. Our industry is there's some good feeders into it, and there's a lot of interest in it. We're very involved with higher education. We do a lot of internships with people to pull those people in. Oftentimes, you can go out and we're one of many large data center providers. So we look at our competitors and cherry pick the best people if we can. We're very careful about that, because a lot of people come with preconceived ideas and they want to do it their way. And that's the thing I've found with technologists anyway. If they've been successful in their past, a lot of them attribute the success of the product or the service to their activity rather than looking at the context. And maybe it was circumstance or whatever. So you have to be humble enough to say, we just pivoted really quickly and we saw an opportunity. So when we're looking at building teams, we're looking for people who have that mindset, that humility to say, I was part of a team and we did amazing things, rather than I did amazing things and I can do those amazing things for you, but you have to do it the way I want it done. So that's really important, to have that humility, but also the drive to succeed. So it's an interesting blend of individual. Someone who's very driven. So you have that blend of high alpha, but with the ability to be, to team, which is unusual, but we have a lot of them, which is great.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta. You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted vCISOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com. Let's talk about scalability then. So how did you and the company approach scalability when you're starting out on this journey, and how are you kind of fighting this as you grow? And this could be team scalability, approach, all of those things.
We're very fortunate with our funding model. We're a private company, so a lot of the companies in the data center world are publicly traded, and a lot of them are private. Several years ago, data center became an interesting asset class for particularly the institutional investment community. So a lot of our competitors are owned by institutional funds. We're very fortunate with our owners, Macquarie, which is either the largest or second largest infrastructure investor on the planet, depending on who they've just bought or sold. So it's very, very close. The group that we're managed by, our funds are managed by, typically do real infrastructure. So by that I mean bridges and roads and airports and wind farms and solar and waste to energy. So their return on investment profile is very different. When a company, and the ones I've been in the past, when we're raising funds, usually it's a 7-year fund, and there's good money coming out from the fund the first 3 or 4 years. But after that, the investment managers are like, well, I'm going to divest myself from this fund pretty soon, so I don't really want to give you any more, because I want to maximize my return. We don't have that. We, with our investment fund, not that we have, as much money as we want. We have to be judicious, but we don't have that restriction. So that enables us to make big bets. So as an example, a couple of years ago, we decided that as the market was growing so quickly, some of the key components out there that everybody needs, generators, UPSs, switchgear, which are usually incredibly expensive and big items, the hyperscalers were going out and just buying manufacturing cycle. They were going to the generators and say, for the next 3 months, everything you build is mine, and the next one would come and do the same. So for us, in non-hyperscale providers, that was really tough. So we went out and pre-purchased 50 megawatts of capacity from all of those suppliers. So we have that in inventory ready to roll. So last year, for example, there's a device called a PDU, a power distribution unit. It's the big box that is the last stage of, as the energy comes in from the utility through all of our gear, it's the last device before we deliver it to the customer, and then they consume it. So there's a particular component in that. For this market, it's manufactured in 2 places, 2 factories in Mexico, and both of them were closed down for several months because of COVID. So everything else was there, but there's just this one component. We had them in inventory, so we were able to carry on deploying our technology and delivering our customer services, and built out so much more capacity last year. So there's that in that future planning and forethought. Also, how we build the products. Several years ago, we decided to make sure all the electrical stuff, instead of having discrete rooms in the buildings with all the transformers and the UPSs and things, we put them in containers, and they're manufactured off-site and just delivered to us, so we can deploy that really, really quickly. And the added benefit of that is because it's made in a factory, we're not subjecting the environment that we're building with all those extra bits of copper or those little bits and pieces that get when you're cutting and crimping cables. With the best will in the world, they're going to get into the water supply. They're going to leach down. So that's just bad. Everything we do is based on environmental sustainability. Materials we use, how we ship to market, we conform to ESG. There's lots of GRESB. There's lots of things that we do to ensure that we're doing the right thing to have a scalable product that our customers want. There's lot I could talk for hours and hours and hours on all the different minutiae of what we do, but that's first and foremost. It's customer service and sustainability in everything we do.
Those 2 points on scalability, the pre-ordering the inventory and having it on hand and then having it containerized too, are brilliant.
For that side, when you're looking at the procurement people, you need people who understand the industry. We've got some of our team, they've actually worked for the manufacturers in the past. So they understand how you build a UPS. They understand how the cells come together, or the lithium. And we use lithium titanate oxide rather than lithium ion, because you can have them closer together. There's no thermal runaway issue. We're also looking at sodium. We're constantly looking at the next thing to optimize our service. But having people from the industry who can talk the chemistry, they understand what's going on. They understand the supply chains for our suppliers. It's critical.
Well, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm probably most proud of the team that we have. It's the people. There's that old adage, work hard, play hard, which I think a lot of people, they just say that because there's no playing hard. There's just a lot of working hard, or there's too much playing hard and then there's no business afterwards. But we have a very good, healthy balance. So we do work really hard, but everyone's very committed. But we have a lot of fun together. I'm still quite British, so I don't say, we're a family, but everybody else says, we're a family. It's just, way too British to say that, but it does feel that way. We do care about each other and we look after each other, and we look out for each other, but we also challenge each other. So it's a very, we don't let people off. If they make a mistake, they own up to it, but we don't persecute them for it. It's, everyone, and that's also very important, to have the environment where, obviously, we hope you don't make too many mistakes, but if you make a mistake and learn from it, that's good. And as long as it doesn't impact too much and we can change and pivot, that's okay. We also have checks and balances so that doesn't happen. But we allow people to go beyond and push them beyond their comfort zone to really think more entrepreneurial, more innovatively.
Well, let's flip the script then. So tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I think what we'll talk about here, we had a platform, a BMS, a piece of technology that manages all the building management system. It monitors all of that, and we were using a technology that looked like life. So we wanted to bring that in, and we decided to put it into a data lake, and we threw it in there. But the team we had to do that didn't actually follow the procedures that we wanted, so we were having to rebuild that. But what we have now, and that's just a case of, we allowed something to go on. It looked like it was right, but at the end of the day, it wasn't. So last year, we realized that we had to do some modifications. So that's not really a mistake. That's just how you build a product and service. But everything, we've pivoted, we've refocused and retooled. Yeah, I can't think of one that. Certainly one I'm not prepared to admit to in a public forum.
So what does the future look like for Aligned, for the company, and for your team?
This market is growing. And, I hesitate to use exponential because it's sort of an overused term, but it really is. as the endpoint devices are accelerating, whether it's an IoT device in the home or in a factory, or if it's 5G connected, whatever. I mean, things are just growing like crazy. We live in an entirely digitized society now. That's where we are. I'm a Gen X, so I'm a digital native. I moved into this. Millennials now are the majority of the workforce, and they are pretty much digital. They grew up with this. They don't know anything different. And the Zs and the next ones, it's just commonplace. So the demand for technology and the demand for the services is just growing like crazy. So for us as the repositories, we manage and build the engines of the fourth industrial revolution, which sounds very, very grandiose, but our buildings are the ones that host the servers and storage and devices that service all of those requirements. So for us, we're constantly looking at where the next place to build is. I mean, there are discrete pockets around the world where you can say, yeah, there's a cluster of data centers here, there, and there. And they're for either historical reasons, because that's where the internet was created and founded, or there's low energy costs and taxation. But there's different reasons why data centers are built where they are. But we're constantly looking at the next place where we can get ahead of the curve to secure the land and ready to go. And also constantly iterating on our design process so that we can build faster, more sustainably, and give a much better product to our customers at a lower cost to them, a lower operating cost. That's really what it all comes down to. So North America is our current market. We're looking out in Europe as well as South America. We have sister companies that do Asia Pac, and there's just an enormous need for this product and service out there.
Let's switch to you, Phill. Who influences the way that you work? CEO, an architect, a startup individual, a prominent person in the data center space. Name a person that you look up to and why.
I came here because of the CEO, Andrew. I'd watched his career over. He was the chief revenue officer for the largest data center company on the planet, and decided and was asked to come and run this business as from the founders. Sort of, they got to the point as far as they could go. He came in to take it to the next level. He is a strong driver for me. Also, he's my boss, and we stand next to each other in an open office environment. So, but I get a lot of my thought and direction from him. He's an extraordinary man. His drive and his passion, and also his compassion for the people. Outside of that, I read a lot. And I'm actually dyslexic. So I look at other dyslexics like Richard Branson, or people like that who are very innovative, and that helps me think differently. I think I approach problems in a very different fashion because my brain works slightly different. I see the world slightly differently. So I'm constantly looking for. I look outside of those things, but my passion is doing crazy things, and when I'm doing those crazy things, I come up with interesting ideas, and I approach problems in a different fashion as a consequence.
Well, we talked about a mistake, right? But a little bit different spin. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you do differently, or where would you consider taking a different approach?
For Light, I think I would have tried to push us to be a bit more aggressive early on, but that's just me. I like to build things. So. But I don't think that's a problem. I think we did things very, we were very judicious with our capital expenditure. We did the right things at the right time. For me personally, I think I would have liked to have come here earlier, but I was busy doing something else with another firm. So, and I'd looked at the cooling. That became apparent to me about 5 or 6 years ago, looking at the way things were going. But I was busy doing other things. But if I'd focused on that, 5-6 years ago, I probably would have jumped ship. I would have approached this company a lot earlier and a lot of that. But I tend not to have any regrets. I always look forward, and everything's a learning experience. And I'm very open. I learn by my mistakes or missteps. I'm just not going to tell you about them.
Well, Phill, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. Can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person having gone down this road a bit?
That's a great question. Because I've done a lot of mentoring for companies like that, early stage startups. And the thing that I've seen more and more, typically the creator, the entrepreneur has a vision for the product, and they're pushing that. What I would say is hold that with a light touch, because even though you're driving that, the market might change. You may need to pivot, but all the energy and the technology and the assets that you've brought into this, be very open to pivoting depending on an opportunity or a market, because trying to sell an idea is tough. It's hard. But if you have something, if you have some demonstrable technology or product, it may serve another purpose, the one you didn't envisage, because things are changing so quickly. But that's what I do. But don't give up on your dreams. And if you can find someone to pay you to do what you love doing, then that's great. And it depends on the drive. If they want to be a CEO, because some entrepreneurs, that's their focus. Some just want to build a product. If you want to build a product, then just you may not end up being the CEO of your own company, but that's okay as long as you can drive that and you can then do the next thing. If you just want to be a CEO, that's a different path entirely.
Well, Phill, thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for telling the creation story and how you got involved with Aligned.
Oh, my pleasure.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Laphart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.